Good evening. This is the Villa Park Traffic and Safety Committee. It is February 4th, and it is 8 o'clock. So we'll have roll call.
Cuthbertson.
Yes.
DiTomaso.
Yes.
Blaskamp. Little.
Present.
McMurray.
Yes.
Carl Timmerman.
Here.
Karen Timmerman.
Yo.
Wagner.
Here.
Chairperson Pincos.
Here. Okay, item 3, amendments to the agenda.
Chairperson Pincos.
Yes.
I'd just like to preface that I do have the draft minutes for the December meeting available in the packet for review and ready for the Commission's consideration tonight, but the January meeting minutes are unfortunately not finished yet. So I would leave it to the Commission as to whether we just skip that item or if somebody would like to.
I'll make the motion to amend the agenda to, I guess, table
DiTomaso?
3B.
Any seconds?
Here.
I think it's 3.
Sorry, was that
Carl.
Okay.
Any other amendments we want to make to this agenda? Oh, we got to vote on it, okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, been approved. Okay, now, any other amendments to this agenda? Okay, so we'll move on. And we're gonna go to item 4, public comments on agenda items. Do we have anybody that's from the public on agenda items? Okay, none. We'll move on to item 5, public comments on non-agenda items. And we have 2 people here. I'm gonna call by I'm gonna go Ray Tanner.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ask that if you try to keep that to about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, please.
20 seconds.
20 seconds, okay?
I remember last year I requested stop signs at four-way stop at Princeton and Elm and Princeton and Division.
Yes?
Nothing happened there. And then last Tuesday there was an accident on the corner of Division and Princeton. Around 12, just after 12:30, I want to say.
Okay.
That's it. I just requested it and nothing happened. Last year after a kid got hit on Elm and Princeton and got dragged. You said you were going to check into it? I guess you never did.
Okay. It is on the agenda. We haven't done anything with it because we are still investigating it, but thank you. Next person is Tina Costados. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tina Constados. I live on Princeton, North Princeton. I just wanted to ask about situations. I'm going to use as an example North Avenue and Ardmore. When you are going east on North Avenue and you get into the left lane to turn into the Target area, when you get the turn to turn left, the arrow comes on. The arrow is also on for the people coming out of Target to turn right. So if you're trying to make a U-turn onto North Avenue, you're U-turning while they're turning and you're kind of colliding in. And it's kind of like one of those, well, who really has the right of way? Because we both have a green arrow. So I was just wondering, is there something we can do about, I'm just using this light as a particular example because I happen to U-turn there 20 times a day since our business is on North Avenue. So as I'm trying to make my U-turn on my green arrow, the people coming out of Target are trying to turn and go west on North Avenue, making a right, but we both have green arrows showing us the right of way, and we're unsure when you try to come together to collide, like, well, who slows down, who waits, who doesn't. So I just wanted to bring situations like that to your attention. I don't know if that's something that's a village thing or, but it's a little bit of a safety hazard.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If you're on North Avenue turning left to Target, does the sign show that it's U-turn, left turn, and U-turn, or does
Yes.
it say left turn only? It
No.
does show the
Yeah,
U-turn
yep.
also?
Yeah.
I do believe that's state, because I know I was trying to do something at Addison Road and North Avenue.
I think there's a
I was
sign for
told, but that
U-turn
was a
there.
state jurisdiction.
I believe you're correct, there is a sign, there,
Yeah, it's a little, so it's just kind of,
but we'll double check.
I
that and take a
appreciate,
look
yeah.
at that.
Chairperson Pinkos?
Yes.
Isn't the law says that if you're making the turn, you're supposed to go into the lane that is closest to where you're turning? So if you're making a left turn, you're supposed to go into the lane that's closest to you, and the right turn's supposed to go into the lane that's closest to them. So it shouldn't be a
Correct.
collision issue because people are supposed to be turning into their
But when
own
you-
separate lanes.
when you U-turn, you can't, there's not enough for you to U-turn.
It's too tight.
Yeah, it's too tight of a turn. So you actually kind of end up going somewhat into the middle to right lane, especially if you have a bigger vehicle, say a big pickup truck or something. And then sometimes they're not coming into the right lane to make their right, they're going to the center lane. But it's tight when you're doing a U-turn, and a lot of people U-turn there. So I just wanted to bring it to the attention, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Yes. Did you fill out a form at all?
No, but I spoke to Kevin Martellus earlier this afternoon.
Yes, if we could just ask you to fill out a request to speak, just so we have your information, though, please.
But you can speak first, and then if you could fill that out, and we can have that on record.
I apologize in advance.
No problem.
I'm a little bit nervous. I've never done this before. First of all, I have a lot of respect for you all. I'm not a city commissioner. I'm not a city planner. I respect you guys. I certainly respect the Villa Park police officers. I have a big concern. I have been a registered nurse for 54 years. I have worked in pediatric and newborn intensive care from New Haven, Connecticut to Los Angeles. Currently, I'm a District 45 school nurse. Here's the deal. I have kids that go to Ardmore. The traffic on Ardmore, the traffic on Harvard is horrendous. I don't understand about fiscal. I know that people don't want to be inconvenienced. It's a two-way street. So when the 2:30 pickup line picks up those little kids, there are a lot of times trash companies, their trucks are coming at us. And today there was a Prime guy that was there. People, number one, they pick up their kids, they just want to get out of there. They're not looking. I'm asking you to think of 5 seconds. I have 2 little grandkids. Okay, so one kid gets in the car, the other kid says, I'm going to throw my backpack in the back. Okay, 1 second. I'm going to walk around. Oh, wait a second. Lola's sitting in the front seat. I got to get in the back seat. The minute he goes in the street, which I know he's not supposed to do, there's such a chance that the car is going to come and clip him. People are not cautious drivers there. They just want to get their kids and get home, and I understand that. I've taken care of hundreds of little kids that have been in car accidents. I wouldn't want to be the person that caused it. I sure as hell would not want to be the mom or the kid itself. I just wish if one of you could sit in that lane from 2:30 to 3 o'clock and pretend you had a kid coming out of that school. I can't help but think that you'd be like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. And the staff and the teachers at Ardmore are wonderful. But what a responsibility they have. They're handling all these kids. They can't see a kid over here that's going to dart out into the street. The other day, I was school nursing there. There was a police officer there sitting in his car, and I called the office. I said, thank you, thank you, thank you, just to have a guy there so that people are cognizant, like, yikes, I better slow down. So I'm kind of passionate about this, and I apologize, but I really wish it could be considered. Thank you.
I was just going to let you know, we will probably bring that up for a discussion a little bit later if you'd like to stay around. Otherwise, if you could fill that out and stuff. Okay. Any other comments from the public on non-agenda items? Okay, we'll move on to our report from Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Committee. Bob?
Thank you, Chairman Pinkos. The Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee met on January 23rd. We some of the major things we talked about was the project sidewalk grant. And I think I mentioned at our last meeting that was kind of being handled a little bit differently. A private individual is going to receive the money from Active Transportation Alliance because the village, for a variety of reasons, wanted to be at kind of arm's length. But there was a training meeting, a training session this evening. We're hoping to involve Willowbrook students in the Project Sidewalk program. This is an app where you can use Google Street View to identify areas where there are problems. And St. Charles Road was one of the areas that they initially identified. So, but technically, the subcommittee is not involved with it. A private individual is accepting the funds, and it's going to go towards funding a kind of an event where Willowbrook students will be involved in the Project Sidewalk mapping event. We talked about our goals for 2025. We talked about the parking recommendations. Nothing has happened so far with that. The recommendations were sent over to the village manager, village president, so nothing about when that might be scheduled for a discussion by the village board. The Commissioner Joe Amore gave us a report on the DePage Rail Safety Council, and which he's a member. He talked about the large grant that the Village of Elmwood Park received. They received $13 million to help them further their efforts for their rail grade separation. I believe that's along Grand Avenue. And we talked about community outreach. We will be holding another Rite of Silence this year, which will be on May 21st. Rite of Silence is an event to commemorate or to honor or to recognize the unfortunate occurrence of fatalities involving bicyclists and pedestrians. And we've gotten a lot of support from the Villa Park Police Department and have had an escort, and we usually join up with the Elmhurst Bike Club. There was some discussion about the metro station, accessibility to the metro station, and I did mention that there's potentially a individual who may want to use that space that formerly was for a coffee shop. They may be returning there. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, going on to item 7, approve the minutes. We've tabled that until next meeting.
We tabled 7B, not 7A.
We tabled 7B.
Correct.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were, okay. So, we have 3, our December 3rd minutes in there. Yes, Bob?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the December 3rd, 2024 meeting.
I'll second.
First by Wagner, second by Di Tomaso.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. And therefore, and then we tabled the January minutes. Moving on to item 8, old businesses. Item number 900, parking restrictions on Princeton and South Belden.
Chairperson Pincus?
Yes.
So if the commissioners will recall, at the December meeting, this item was left at the point where staff was going to look into the possibility of placing barricades or parking curbs or boulders or something to that effect. Or I guess I should say, looking into the feasibility of placing some sort of barriers or some sort of custom signs. The bottom line with the signs is we cannot put up anything that isn't supported by ordinance, is the answer on that. So without going through the steps of recommending an ordinance to the board, having that ordinance go to the board for adoption, there's really no signage that the village can use on a permanent basis. That said, one of the suggestions that was made was that Parks and Recreation staff or soccer parents or families, coaches, whoever it might be, could put out temporary signs. I think we'd come back to that just a little bit later because that doesn't really tie into this part of the conversation. But the bottom line is that, setting aside the fact that the village cannot install permanent signs, the village is willing to consider putting some decorative boulders or rocks or large landscaping stones in the East Parkway out there. That was something that the original complainant had mentioned that I don't recall if they came up with this suggestion or if it was the commission, but I believe they indicated they were willing to entertain that option, and I followed up with them to confirm that. That is still something they would like to pursue. So with the commission's agreement, the village is willing to move forward with that. I don't believe at this point that there is any public support from residents on Princeton for any type of 24/7, 365 parking restrictions, either on the east or the west side. I think everyone who went out and spoke with residents received pretty consistent responses that either they didn't think it was a problem, or even if there was a problem, they didn't want their parking restrictions, their parking taken away. So that would be staff's offer at this point, is with regard to the specific location specifically complained about, we would put some sort of barriers out there as soon as we can get that done, and then keep tabs on the situation. So I leave that for the commission's discussion.
I love it. Can we like vote to do that? Is that a thing?
Okay. So technically, there doesn't need to be a formal vote to recommend something to staff, but you certainly can. The one thing I would advise is that because the commission formally voted to recommend adoption of an ordinance, I'm sorry, there was no ordinance as of October, but formally voted to make a recommendation, it would be appropriate for that recommendation to be rescinded if that's the commission's desire. So two-pronged approach there.
Right.
So, any further questions, discussions? Everybody understand what's
So
developing?
the temporary barriers in that, they're going to be deployed by the village?
That's correct.
Okay, by staff then? And they
Yeah.
will be in place during or constantly?
They would not be temporary. This wouldn't be something that would be easily moved. I should back up, I guess, and clarify that the suggestion was made for parking curbs. Not only do we feel that that is just going to be an eyesore, but those aren't really substantial enough to keep anybody from parking in them, and if somebody rolls over one and pops a tire, now we've got liability. Whereas if we put some larger, and again, we haven't looked into pricing on this, so we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost, but some larger landscaping boulders or something far enough outside of the pavement that they're not going to be a traffic hazard to motor vehicles, but still close enough to prohibit parking effectively. So it wouldn't technically be illegal, but it would be very inconvenient and impractical for anybody to do it. And that's what we think could basically provide a compromise here where signage is not really, unfortunately, a long-term option.
Okay, you said on the east side of the street.
Correct.
You've got,
In discussing further with the complainant, that is actually the area that was most concerned about.
Okay.
Okay.
I think Joey was first.
Just so I understand, so staff feels that because the problem is so sporadic, usually around when soccer season is on a Saturday, that there's really no need to create an ordinance.
Staff would agree that, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Not only that, but it seems like the residents, even the original complainant, would prefer not to have any sort of full-time parking restrictions enacted. That this was just a specific issue limited to a particular date and time within a portion of the year.
Yes, Joy?
I spoke with Director Gola about this a little over a month ago. And what from our discussion, it seems that they're willing to put something along the lines of a fence or boulders or something like that on this area they were concerned where they're parking in the grass. We heard that mentioned before. There's some drain tiles there and things like that that are a concern to the village. So they're going to solve that problem. They're also considering whether or not they can add additional parking areas in other places around the park to accommodate some of this, and they're also going to look at some of their scheduling to make sure that there aren't too many things going on at once causing an overflow of parking. So based on all that, I would be happy to table any recommendation until we see how all that works out.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Jack?
Well, that person you spoke to, is that from Park District or?
Director
from-
Gola, yeah, he directs
Okay.
Parks and Rec.
I know he had mentioned about having the Park District, if they'd be responsible for putting out some temporary signs during those occasions, because.
That may be something they'll do as well,
They
to just
would-
tell people don't park on the grass or something like that.
Yeah,
But
I'm-
if you look on page 25 of the packet,
Mm-hmm.
there's a picture and you can see all the cars parked on the grass.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Right,
I
so-
just, one of the things would the Park District be willing to do that? Because I would hate to see the residents, when there's not items, venues going on at the park of some type, I would hate to see the residents be able to use those parking spaces by putting something more permanent or big boulders or something.
No,
I
they
see
were-
not for parking on the grass, but,
They were thinking of something more of a decorative fence, like
Mm-hmm.
a split rail fence or something like that. Nothing that would be out of place or anything like that, or considerably expensive.
right.
Just to keep them off of the grassy area, but they're also looking to what else they can do to minimize the concerns we've had with people parking on both sides of the street and clogging the street and things like that.
Right.
And they recognize it's a problem for them also, because, they need places for their people to park.
Right, I just want to make sure that, so we're not hindering the use of those spaces when there's not a function going on at the park where the neighborhood can still use them.
Right.
And we're not putting permanent signs up.
No,
Okay, got it. Trying to look at both sides of the fence here on
Right.
this. Bob.
Yes, Bob?
Speaking of communication with Director Gola, maybe it's something that Kevin should do to say, okay, in the program or the brochure, where they, have opportunities for soccer, to say that there's a communication or a memo to them to say, don't park there. These are only park in assigned parking areas in Twin Lakes Park or in the designated parking. I think that would go a long way to help alleviate the problem, if they would have some special communication to parents.
they are looking at
From,
that kind
from-
of, they are looking at doing that
from
kind of
Kevin.
stuff.
Those conversations have started. I'll be honest, my personal opinion is that that's not likely have an effect, going to
Okay.
have an effect when a parent's running 2 minutes late to the game and
Gotcha.
it's convenient and,
Well, yeah, at
my
least-
personal opinion.
Yeah, I think at least we've made an effort, or they've made an effort.
So, and I did, I guess, leave off, I mentioned earlier that we had talked about the possibility of family or soccer coaches putting up those signs. We can still discuss that further. I just think that's going to be something that, you're going to have different families out there each season, probably as kids get older, obviously. I think it's going to be something that's very difficult to keep going over time. So just my 2 cents.
So, okay, Joe?
I was gonna ask, what should we do with our recommendation from before? Should we table that for a period of time? Should we remove it and then bring it back later if we choose?
Once we get done discussing it, then we'll discuss what that situation would be.
I have a question on that, too. I mean, we make a recommendation, and it's up to the board whether to act on it or not.
That's correct.
Okay? So if they decide they aren't going to act on it, then we have the right to make another recommendation, don't we?
Yes, but I don't think we have sent that recommendation first off to the board. It's still sitting in our package to be reviewed,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, just a quick reminder for the commissioner's memory. At the October meeting, that was where the vote to make the recommendation was made, but I had reminded commissioners that typically in the past, we would have a draft ordinance available for review before that formal recommendation gets sent to the board. So we brought a draft ordinance for review at the November meeting. That was when we did, staff that is, offer up to residents to attend. We did have an attendee who expressed opposition to the draft ordinance as written.
I can't remember, but.
I can't remember if you were at November or not, so.
I don't remember.
I wasn't.
So
I was
the
delivering votes.
what it's coming down to is village/park district is willing to put some type of decorative restricting, something decorative restricting the parking as we see it on this picture here to make it look presentable to the residents that are there.
And block access for vehicles.
Right. And it seems to be, from Kevin talking to the people over there and stuff, it seems to be that they really don't want to have that permanent no parking to be put up there. So they're mainly worried about that area just not being damaged and being ugly and, you know, in reference to that situation. So, seems like we've had that covered in reference to it. We're gonna hopefully see what the village obviously is thinking about doing something with it. And I don't know how that reflects with the park district in connection with it. Is that all part of the?
We're all under the umbrella of the Village of Villa Park, just
Okay.
departments.
Right, so that does then, Tricia.
I'm not trying to interrupt, but I'd like to make a motion then to rescind our draft ordinance. Because if we're going to solve the problem that the residents have in a way that's not objectionable to them, let's get rid of the proposal then. So I'd like to move that we rescind the draft ordinance.
I'll second that.
That's where I was leaning to. Okay,
Okay, so motion by Little, second by Di Tomaso.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. That covers that. Okay, getting on to items number, I'm gonna combine,
Sorry, Chairperson Pankos, just for my understanding, did the commission wish to take any further action on the topic of barrier, fence, rocks, et cetera?
I'd say we just leave that to Parks and Rec at this point. If they need input from us in the future, certainly, but for now.
I totally agree, we should end up leaving it with them. However, good point, should we leave it, have another item put on our agenda to follow through with it, or should we just let it?
I
sit
think
with
we
the-
should just let it drop until, if it becomes a problem again, we can revisit it, but at this point, it's kind of in the village's hands.
Well, are we going to make a recommendation or not?
We're not making a recommendation about the parking signs. We are.
Just to
but-
rescind?
We rescind it.
Right.
Okay.
So and then we're not going to make any further recommendations on this matter?
On the parking signs, that's correct.
Okay.
So the question is, yes, Bob?
Well, what I was going to say is I think we should communicate with the residents, you know, that have come forward to say, this is what we're doing, so that they know clearly what's happening, that we, you know, based upon, we're reconsidering what we're enacting, you know, recommending an ordinance because we think that the situation is so sporadic and there are maybe other solutions that do not involve an ordinance. I'm just saying we need to communicate with the resident, just to let them know what's happening, since they came to us.
Yes, and I'm gonna turn to you. Have you, is that when you left talking to a couple of them, that's where you were?
I've had that conversation with the original complainant, not with any other residents, but I would imagine staff could put together a very quick letter that would go out and just explain what is being
What they want you to
considered.
do of this meeting.
That's fine.
Again, I think we have a little bit of time to deal with this end of it anyways. My recollection is that the soccer season doesn't start until, is it at least April?
It's April.
Okay.
Okay. So you guys will put a letter
We'll get
together.
something out to residents, just advising that this is what, based on communications with traffic and safety and discussions amongst staff, that this is the solution that staff is planning to implement.
And you can also relay that to the powers that be regarding blocking that grassy area?
I'm sorry, I thought that's what we're talking about.
Well,
That's exact-
I mean the village staff that may need to know.
That's what we just said. It's
Yeah.
all under one umbrella, under the
Right,
village.
okay, good.
Okay. Did you have something?
Nope.
I just, okay. All right, so, basically looking at that then, I'm asking if we could, have a motion to remove this item from our agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Di Tomaso?
Second?
I'll second.
Carl? All in favor? Say aye. Any nays?
Apologies, just let me catch up here a second. That was Di Tomaso and Carl on the second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we want to try and combine this, or leave them as separate?
It's up
For
to you
your
guys.
information.
That's up to you guys.
Okay, item 902, stop signs at Elm in Princeton. We'll take these as separate since they are separate agenda items.
So, Chairperson Pincos, unfortunately, as commissioners will recall, this was on staff to conduct all-way stop sign warrant studies at the two intersections. We have not yet completed that effort. Unfortunately, the gentleman who was here earlier making the public comments has left, otherwise I could advise as to the status on that. That said, I have reached out to request a copy of the crash report for the alleged accident from last week to see what that entails. So we will look into that as well. Obviously incorporate that in the larger two studies that are underway.
And I'm trying to recall my memory, I didn't remember there was another accident there before, as he said.
Last year sometime?
It was a while back.
I
but it
believe
was
that
on a
accident
bicycle.
is actually in the package.
Is that this one? Okay. So it happened on June 3rd.
That's what I get for not reading the damn thing before I get here.
Yes, June 3rd of last year.
Thank you.
The car accident.
Okay.
What's the car accident there?
6/3/2024.
Point of order, best practice is to say crash instead of accident, because there are conditions that result in the car crash occurring, and those conditions were created intentionally.
I apologize. I try to make a point of using it correctly, but sometimes I slip.
It's hard.
Okay. Okay. And besides that, and this other accident that happened last week, did we request to go back any further than this? I
Yeah.
don't recall that, though.
It actually is dictated by the MUTCD. The MUTCD, and please don't quote me on this, but it's X amount of crashes within 3 years or a different Y number of crashes within 5, I believe. There's two standards which can be met in terms of the crash volume for it to be considered for stop sign, for all-way stop control.
Okay.
Are there crosswalks at these intersections?
I believe so, yes.
Yes?
I believe so.
I don't think so.
I guess I should clarify. For us, the definition of crosswalk is, are there sidewalks approaching the pavement on one or the other side? Are you asking, are there marked
Pavement
Correct.
marking?
Yeah.
crosswalks? Then I believe not.
Well, the reason I ask is that as I'm looking at the police report from June 24, that's attached, it looks as though the car was traveling normally and the bike just kind of jumped out in front of them.
The cyclist was 3/4 of the way across the intersection on the far side of the intersection from the car?
The picture looks like he just stepped off the curb in front of the car.
Cyclists.
None of us were there, so we
Right,
don't know.
cyclists ride on the right-hand side of the street.
He was trying to cross, and it's a child, so.
The unit,
Tricia, where did you find that?
I'm sorry, so Unit 1 is the motor vehicle, was traveling westbound on Elm approaching Princeton. Unit 2 was riding his bicycle northbound on Princeton. So riding northbound,
That would have put him to going the other way.
okay, so he's on he's riding on the left-hand side of the street, but traveling northbound means that he had crossed
Yeah,
more than half of the street.
right.
And the car entered the intersection while he was crossing already, because bicycles move slower than motor
Sure.
vehicles. So the fact that they intersected when they were both more than halfway across the intersection means that the motor vehicle entered the intersection while the cyclist was already traveling through. The cyclist did not jump out
Okay.
in front of the car. The cyclist was in the intersection before the car approached.
Sergeant Landa? There's 2 citations listed on here, but no names for what they are.
I believe those are hit and run citations.
Hit and run?
I have to look at the statutes, but
So is that what we're saying?
this is gonna be the report for the crash, the year. So 33 to 43, that's what the citations issued.
So 511, 401, A and B are hit and run?
I got it. That's 511-401.
And I'm looking at a satellite map to see that there are, in fact, crosswalks at all of those intersections, but none of the crosswalks are high-vis painted in any way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, has to do with hit and run, so any scene of hit and run or a crash and not providing,
Just looking at this, I'm just trying to recreate this in my head. When you said hit and run, right away, I'm thinking maybe he was speeding, he was this, he was that, but at the same time, it looks like the child wasn't taken to a hospital.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he was.
Was he? No, it said declined, I thought.
No, that's Unit 1.
Yeah.
Or was that?
So unit 2, and then there he is down there.
Refused.
No, that's
one
unit
is
1, that's the vehicle driver.
Oh, okay.
Unit 2 is the cyclist.
Got it. So if this driver was traveling fast and not paying attention and then ran from the accident, would a stop sign have done any good?
so not every hit and run, every they speed or violate a traffic signal.
You see my point, though? I'm trying to see if a stop sign would have made any difference.
Could have not. I mean, if there's a stop sign on Elm heading west, you could have stopped and still proceeded through the intersection, struck a child west of Princeton Avenue.
Sure.
Yes, Bob?
I think it's interesting that we're trying to determine who's at fault based upon a police report. I think the ultimate issue is whether or not, some sort of traffic control device is appropriate for that intersection. This is evidence that there may be, but I think the Warren study will tell us more.
I totally agree, and I think we're still looking to go back to make sure that we look at the, what, 3 years back, you said? Or 5 years?
Well, I said there's two different criteria with regard to crash report volume.
Okay.
Again, I don't recall what those are off the top of my head.
So we would need to, I would like to have those reports if it's
Of course.
possible.
Yeah, those are already part of things. We just unfortunately have not compiled it all together.
Okay.
What
And
we
Bob,
don't-
I agree with what you're saying. We are not here to determine what the, who's at fault or anything. There was an incident at that location, and it's really how many times it's reoccurring is what we're looking at. Ed?
How long would it take to get the warrant study?
Well, I believe I had advised commissioners when we threw this out initially that it would be a meeting or so. I think we are now just 3 meetings in, so it has not been as quick of an effort as I had hoped.
Okay.
I have a question. Is he done?
Since we would have to wait for a warrant study, and then we'd have to review the warrant study, that's time, whether it's warranted there or not, and ultimately whether we feel one, as a commission, one should be there or not, to get through that. I don't know if this will necessarily prevent a repeat of this, but it doesn't require all that much additional work, from my understanding. What about putting signs on northbound and southbound Princeton under the stop sign that says cross traffic does not stop?
Am I, did I? Take a look at that again. I believe there is no stop signs for the traffic on Elm as it's indicated.
Correct,
here.
there are, but there's stop signs at Princeton. What I was saying is under those stop signs going northbound and southbound on Princeton, putting up signs that say cross traffic does not stop. Now, I don't necessarily know in hindsight if that would have prevented a situation like this, but from living over there, I can tell you that those north and south, those streets going across Elm, every single one of them has an issue over there. So I think a few years ago, I think it was pre-COVID, we had gotten cross traffic does not stop signs on northbound, southbound Michigan and Elm. They're up there. That has helped a little bit. Again, I don't know if it should have prevented a situation like this, but that's also another option, and one that won't take the amount of due diligence on our part to come up with the determination if we need to put a four-way stop there.
Okay, note it. Yes, Jack?
Yeah, something I do see, and I mean, this was an unfortunate situation that happened, but this scenario actually applies to every single intersection in Villa Park, not just that one. If we set a precedence by doing something at that one, are we stuck doing that for every intersection in the village?
Well, that was my follow-up concern is if we put a four-way stop here, what about all the other streets?
Yes, you will end up with a four-way
down
stop,
Elm and down-
always, no,
Yeah.
we can't four-way, always stop sign at every intersection throughout the whole entire town, take an hour to drive through Villa Park.
Exactly.
Go get a cup of coffee.
And what makes this intersection
This
different?
scenario was unfortunate, but
Sure.
this does apply, the way we have to look at it, and we probably need the traffic study for this, but this scenario applies to every intersection in Villa Park, not just
Right.
that one.
I totally agree with Jack's statement, but I still would like to see at least the last 3 years of
Sure.
any accidents that have happened, or incidents that have happened over there first, before we start looking any further into that.
Can we look at other accidents up and down that area of Elm? All the way to Addison?
Not just that intersection.
Yale, so on and so forth.
I think that would be,
Because if we're getting accidents at various streets along Elm, then I would say we need to look at things a little bit more, a little bit wider, because why would this one intersection be a problem and not Yale or not Iowa or not Michigan? Harvard has a four-way stop, I believe.
Yes.
It happens at quite a few other ones, too. I know there was one about a year ago at Elm and, what's the first street? Iowa, Wisconsin? There was one there about a year ago. It's kind of happening at all the intersections, not just that one in particular.
So I'm wondering if we were to put a four-way stop at Elm and Princeton, for example, are we solving the problem or kind of making it worse or pushing it just down a little bit further down?
That's what I was saying is,
Yeah.
this scenario applies to every intersection in town, not just that one. We're just,
Right.
From what I'm looking at is on the map and everything, because I think on the west side of that area, we did look into possibly putting a four-way stop about 4 years ago.
I think that was,
that was at Cornell.
yeah, that was at Cornell.
Yeah, there was the
You looked at
mirror
it?
image on the other side of Ardmore was the exact same distance.
Okay.
And from what I understand back then, it was too close to Ardmore within so many feet.
Well, I think that if they do a warrant study on at least the two intersections we have on our thing here, we'll get a good idea of what's going on there. I mean, if it's warranted there, then I don't think it will be because it's too close to Ardmore. Maybe, as we're looking at the rest of the street, as was suggested, you know, there could be one intersection that would meet warrant. You know what I'm saying? And maybe a little further away from Ardmore.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just thinking, is that,
Harvard.
what if we eliminated the four-way at Harvard, but we put one at two other streets between Addison and Ardmore?
Okay.
So that you've got two stops between Addison and Ardmore instead of just one. So your speed doesn't get up too high, you're able to control crossing traffic a little bit better.
Okay.
I would like to remind
Yeah, I know.
that stop signs are not,
No, that's not my primary concern.
Well, I still would like to see the accidents or incidents that are at that intersection at Princeton and Elm, and which then would also determine if we need to have a warrant study on this. And then if that happens, then we would end up, I'm sure it doesn't just take that intersection, it is looking at around at least a 2 or 3 block section. And I'm not sure of that, and I'm looking for Kevin to,
If you're asking me if the warrant study for the intersection of Elm and Princeton would typically encompass adjacent intersections, I don't believe it would.
I've
Okay.
never seen that. But if we were to expand it, maybe at least to the other intersection, or even at Harvard, see if it stands.
is it difficult to? Is it difficult to maybe go back 3 years and see what the incident rate is in that area?
I would say that the crash report history themselves is probably the easiest component of the whole thing. I don't want to say we can go ahead and get something for the entire area together by the next meeting, but we can certainly work on pulling the crash reports. Obviously, we have to redact them before we provide them, but then putting together a quick exhibit that shows when and where those incidents occurred.
Well,
If that's what the commission is asking for.
well, I definitely would want to have
Corridor, yeah.
at least the 3 years, 5 years, whatever, back at that location here at Princeton and Elm. And then if that's high enough, if it's only just one happening every couple of years or something like that, I think that's just a situation that ends up happening possibly anywhere in reference to it.
Just like Jack said.
Right. So, I'd like to see that at our next meeting if it's possible. And, go from that point there, because it's interesting. I'd like to see the incident that happened, just a week ago. Because if there's obviously happening possibly every 6 months, that might be a problem. So, we're in this month 7, so.
Well, you know,
Jay?
Yes.
My understanding is that we've already asked for a warrant study for both Elm in Princeton and Division in Princeton, and the warrant study will necessarily include crash data going back 5 years. So,
Okay.
You know, something, I was looking at this, you know, Trish had mentioned about, I'm looking at this from a different point of view, that you, Trish, mentioned that the bike was already in the intersection when the car was passing. There may be some other factors maybe involved. Was there tinted glass on the car? But line of sight. If you have mirrors, if you have a pillar post, when you have a bicycle coming this way and you're moving in the same direction and that stays in line, this happens more so with trucks with mirrors and bigger pillar posts, but that could have been an incident of line of sight and then all of a sudden, oh, they're there. That needs to be thought about too. And also dark tinted glass, if it's, I mean, this was what, 7 something in the evening, was it just starting to turn dusk out a little bit? Tinted glass also makes a big difference on bicyclists and pedestrians on not seeing them until you're in front of the car. Which, stop sign or no stop sign, would that have helped? It's kind of a toss-up. But we need to consider, because the way this is laid out and the way you pointed it out, that almost looks like a line of sight issue.
Okay, so we do, you're correct, we do have a warrant study going on. We don't have the results of that yet. So I think basically, at the moment, I still like to see the incident that happened
absolutely.
last week.
Yeah.
And we just got to see the results of this warrant study.
So I'll move to table these.
Before you table that, Bob had his hand up.
So my question is, can we anticipate we'll have them at our next month's meeting?
The additional legwork to get the warrant studies wrapped up, I can't promise we'll get that done in the next 4 weeks or whatever it is. Well, yeah, it's 4 weeks. Getting the crash reports for at least these 2 intersections prepared and submitted to the commission, that should be a relatively easy lift. I did just want to mention, since it's come up a few times already tonight, always stop control may be installed at an intersection where an engineering study indicates that A, for a 4-leg intersection, there are 5 or more reported crashes in a 12-month period, or 6 or more reported crashes in a 36-month period that were of a type susceptible to correction by the installation of always stop control. The numbers are slightly different for a 3-leg, but I think you get the idea. So just to answer the previous question on that.
Are you reading from MUTCD?
I am.
What page is that?
It's section 2B.13.
Kevin, are there other, can we only do it if we have those conditions?
Those are the criteria for always stop control based on crash report volume. There are other criteria as well.
Okay, so we can base this on other things,
There are other considerations,
because it
yes.
sounds like we don't have enough crashes.
I need to go back and confirm. I don't want to speak as to
Yeah.
how many occurred out there without going back and checking.
Okay,
So, and that's what he's planning on trying to get done
right,
for this next meeting.
okay, so I,
And we do have a warrant study going on
Right.
at the moment. So,
I would move to table this until the next meeting.
okay.
Both 8, B, and C.
Okay.
A motion by D. Tomaso.
Do we have any more comments about, before we do that, any of them on the Division in Princeton item? No. Okay. So Joe,
Just a point of order. So, I mean, we've just left these on the agenda, waiting for the warrant studies. Is it necessary to table them? I mean, if we just say, indicate we're going to set this aside and we're going to wait for the warrant study. I mean, I think when you table something, you have a date certain when you're going to table it to. I mean, I don't think we've tabled these before, actually.
Usually penned is what we term it.
That's what we've always termed it, but also we've accepted tabling it.
Yeah.
So are we proposing to table it until we have our warrant study?
Would you rather use
My question,
Okay, I'm not understanding.
yeah, my question is, or my point of order is,
Would the harm be
if
in
we,
tabling
do
it?
we actually need to table it? I mean, if we leave it on the agenda and we're gonna revisit it at our next meeting, I don't know if we need to specifically table something. I think we table it until a date specific.
Okay, so it's the word of choice. that
It's the
comes
point
to-
of order, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Would then the word penned be
We
acceptable?
can pend it, yeah.
I mean,
pend
the
it or set it
pending,
aside,
we're
I think
pending
is
it
more
based
appropriate,
on
yeah.
information we're waiting for. We're not tabling it, we're just pending it. And that's what we always used to do.
Okay, pending.
Fine.
Okay, pending. So we're gonna leave it on, we're pending it until we get some more information, and we're moving forward. Okay.
Okay.
Item number 906, crosswalks across Alexander Avenue at, or near Lufkin Park.
We're pending this until spring, yeah?
Kevin, do you have any more information on this?
I can offer that the engineering agreement, which includes the pedestrian study in front of Lufkin Park, was approved at the last board meeting. The initial efforts of that are moving forward, but I would like to just remind everyone that, as I mentioned, I think 2 meetings ago now, in order for us to capture the most accurate picture of pedestrian counts in that vicinity, we're going to have to wait until the park is open with the water features working. We're going to try and overlap that with school still being in session, so we pick up anything from that, and obviously some weather being decent enough for everybody to come out and get picked up on those traffic studies. So probably April or May.
Okay. So we're gonna pen this item until we get further information on this.
You want to table this till April? Or May?
No, I wanna pen it.
You want to pend it?
Yeah. Okay. All right, moving on to item number 907. Drive like your kids play here signs. Asked if we want to leave the wording as it is, or do we want to change it? And the other thing is, do we want to order more signs here in the very near future for spring? Yes, Bob?
So I think there still are 18 signs left at the police station. I don't think anyone's picked up any more signs. I'd like to see us maybe, I don't know, revisit this in the spring. I mean, if there are still signs available, obviously, people are not, breaking down the door to get the signs. Maybe revisit in spring to see if there's a, I mean, I think we ordered 200 signs last time.
Yes.
And we still have signs left over, so I don't see.
And most of those were picked up at certain community events, am I correct? They didn't come running in and picking them up.
Yeah, I don't know how many people came in, but a lot of them were distributed, as you said, community events.
Okay. So by revisiting, you suggesting that we pen this? Or do we just take it off and come back in about April, see where we go?
I mean, I think it makes sense to take it off the agenda. I mean,
Okay. All right, I'm gonna, Joey?
Bob, you've done a great job getting these out at events. Can you think of the first event that'll probably occur in the spring that it would be good to distribute these in?
well, just thinking off the top of my head, I would say probably the Prairie Path cleanup, which I don't know the exact date, but it occurs very close to Earth Day, which may be around April 22nd. That would be the first opportunity when we have members of the public come out.
Well, along with that, it seemed to be, and if I remember right, it seemed to be about 20 to maybe 30 signs that ended up being distributed between those events, per event. So we have 18 signs at the moment. The way I look at it is if we do bring out those other 18 and they get distributed and taken, then we could end up going back and ordering more set of signs that could only take several weeks to obtain, and also then have them for other events coming up. If nothing really happens on the next event, and if somebody from the board here, or the committee from here, does bring them out to that event, that's the key. We need somebody from our committee to be bringing these out to our events. So, yes.
Just some general food for thought. If a decision is made down the line to continue this program and we do get additional signs, with the rec center now open and the library, would it be possible to increase where they could be picked up by residents? Maybe we could get some new.
It's a very good point, and that was something we would have to research. But at the moment, we got 18 signs in our hands here, and obviously it's winter time. And like I said, if it wasn't for our community events and realistically Bob collecting them up and handing them out or having them available at the community event, they wouldn't still be all sitting at the police station, I feel.
Well, as I recall, we did not have them in time for Summerfest last year.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
We didn't have them by Summerfest, and I want to say you're probably correct with that statement.
So my point that I was thinking is that being one of the larger events we had, and roughly halfway through the events, in half the events last year, we went through 200 signs. My point being is that 18 signs isn't really that many compared to what we went through last time. I'm fine tabling this or excuse me, whatever we're doing with them. But
Word of the day.
For now, but I would say we would want to order them beginning of April so that we have them for the first event and subsequent events during the year. They went pretty quick last year. And that's a lot due to Bob. And I agree with that. I think we should be looking into Parks and Rec if they're willing to keep a stash over at the rec center.
Well,
Library too.
we should investigate that. Ed, would you like to investigate that for us?
Oh, sure.
Okay, but on the other hand, I am going back to the other time that we did these signs, and I want to say they didn't readily be picked up at the police station or the village hall. Again, it was Bob handing them out at the...
Oh, Bob's done a great job, no question.
So my point is, we would have to have somebody committed from here to be able to do that, because I don't think you're going to get those signs out any other way. And two is, will there be a saturation of it? Because not a lot of people came pounding on our doors because for the so.
Sorry, I was distracted by the sneeze.
Go ahead, Carl.
I think it's a good way to go. I mean, especially with that, and perhaps we should leave it on the agenda so that monthly we could coordinate with each other who could be at these events to distribute signs and such.
Okay.
Rather than just saying, Bob's going to do it.
I totally agree.
Okay, so that we
We're
keep it,
putting the burden on Bob to go out
Yeah,
there.
I mean, thank you for all the adulation, but it was kind of the Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee group that did it, you know. I mean, I wasn't there all the time.
So true.
Yeah, the other folks were distributing them too, so.
But, okay, so do we want to leave it on and discuss it later as it approaches and?
It's just 2 months away at the beginning of
yeah,
April. Might as well leave it
we've only
on.
got one more meeting
Yeah.
between,
Oh, March and the April meeting.
well, April's, we're there.
Okay, so it's decided that we'll pen this item to the next meeting. New business, item 908, speeding, traffic safety issues on Madison between Villa and Riverside. This is something new, you weren't here last time. Were we able to check anything out? Any information that could be helpful?
So, my understanding is that the speed radar sign was posted, although I don't know if there's been any results from that yet, but, we're still looking into any other, things that we can explore at this time.
Yes, Bob?
I just want to comment that I travel that area twice a day,
Okay.
and I've noticed that there is an increased enforcement or an increased presence of police, especially on Madison.
Okay.
I, just personally, this is not, I have no empirical data, but I think that if we did do some sort of study, we would find that speeds are probably low. That's my reaction, because there's no outlet, you know, there's no longer an outlet for many years under Route 83. I don't, yeah.
Okay. I did go past there last couple, about a couple weeks ago. And, you know, I just slowly went past, went around the block a couple times and I didn't stay there long, but basically I'm gonna say I was the only car there. So,
I also did some pedestrian stuff there, so I didn't see anything going on.
right.
Just randomly when I had the time.
So we did have a speed counter or traffic counter over there. And,
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if there's any results back from that yet, though.
okay, so I just think we should just pen this until the next meeting and then see what that results are and then make a decision. Okay, I'm gonna move on to a couple of the, at our request to speak. Yes?
I've actually got something. We had a resident come in a couple of months ago talking about changing parking on Wildwood from the south side to the north side.
That was the school bus driver?
Correct. And there, I know there was a resident, I don't know if it was the same resident, that went to coffee with the board last week and brought it up again to the board members that were there. Do we want to get this on our agenda and take a look at it?
Kevin? I'm looking
You
at.
want my opinion, or?
No, I'm trying to,
No,
I
you
think we
know,
were gonna investigate about the signs over there in reference to how that was all placed.
Yeah, so for the commission's, just a reminder, we did look into why the side of the street where parking was prohibited had changed. It appears that that ordinance was passed through without ever coming through traffic and safety. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find, that staff that is, weren't able to find much as to why it was put through. I do believe one commissioner went back and found meeting minutes from a village board meeting where it was considered and provided some additional information, but we were unable to find the accompanying, I believe it was a presentation as to why all the parking changes were enacted in that area.
Okay. Does, I guess in reference to, I'm trying to remember how that looked over there. It's been a while since I went past there that one time. and I was kind of questionable about the way that was. Because I felt there was also enough room to be able to get out on curbside, which was the question.
Well, I went there on a couple of different occasions, and the first occasion I had gone there, they hadn't trimmed the trees on the prairie path, and they were encroaching and in fact on the road in some places. So it would make it very difficult for anybody parked on that side of the road to get out of the car on that side. A few weeks later, when I went by again, they had trimmed them back, and then it wasn't an issue. So part of it depends on how frequently, I think it's DuPage County does the trimming over there.
Is that the county or is that the village right away?
It's the village.
Okay.
If I could clarify, county right-of-way, village maintenance responsibility.
Okay.
Okay.
But our Parks and Recs department did go out and trim the vegetation back.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, Bob?
The resident did come back a second time, and she said that the situation was improved because it was
Trimming.
not, branches, foliage was not encroaching out of the street any longer.
I also I went over there and spoke to the resident, and they raised other concerns besides just getting in and out of the car. They've had problems with animals and whatnot coming off the path, and I don't know how serious that is, but regardless, when I looked at it, I didn't see a particular reason that we would need to have the parking on the south and not the north.
Question.
Yes, Jack?
Yeah, I'm just kind of a little curious, is there a lot of parking going on over there? Because the only thing I could possibly see is if we moved it back to the north side, it would drastically reduce the amount of cars that could park along the curb due to streets, sidewalks, or crosswalks, driveway entrances, things like that. It would limit the amount of parking available to the residents. I have gone through there quite a few times, and there's only been like one car parked there. But I do think that, we do need to keep that in mind. We would hate to hinder down the amount of parking spaces available for the residents.
Okay.
I think what Jack said makes sense. I mean, we've had, there's ample parking there because there's no, as you said, there's no crosswalks or anything like that. There's no driveways. So it actually would be is a better place for parking. If there's no encroachment from, foliage and branches, et cetera.
I've got a question too.
Carl?
Due to the fact that the rec center is now open, I wonder if that may have an impact on this area and when major events are going on. So, in fact, is that a voting center, a polling place again?
I can't answer that.
It probably will be.
Okay.
Once it's open, they did it, they've done it for years there, so it's probably gonna be a polling place again. We're always looking for polling places.
Okay.
Tap him on the shoulder, really?
Sorry, he knows.
Well,
Yes, go ahead.
When that was changed, do we remember when it was changed from the north side to the south side? Was that around the time when when they were doing that brewery, and there was long lines? Was that temporarily done, maybe to gain more parking space, because there was an overabundance of people at that time? Was that maybe one of the reasons?
They did a downtown wide parking change
Okay.
of multiple streets, multiple areas, and this just kind of got tossed in. I haven't been able to find anything on minutes or on agendas or packets or anything
Yeah, I
like
think at that
that.
time, they were just trying to gain some more spaces from the exact reason I'm mentioning. It'd be more reduced in spaces on the north side. You can get a few dozen more cars in there now.
Absolutely, but you still have the problem with the vegetation.
I'm gonna jump in here,
Yeah,
okay? Are you asking to add this as
yes,
a new agenda item?
yes.
Consensus of the committee?
I don't see why
You
we
seek a
can't
motion in a
explore it.
second.
I don't see an issue with exploring it. I mean, again, the situation has changed somewhat in the past few months, and as the vegetation starts to grow, it could be a problem. But with vegetation, all you really have to do is call the village and make a note of the area, and eventually they'll get somebody out.
Okay, so since we're having a long discussion on it right now, we're gonna go for adding it to the agenda to look into.
Right.
So this would be
909.
909, and it's a question of reversing the no parking from the north side of the street to the
South
south
side.
side of the street.
It'll be from the south side to the north side, is what they were
Am I
originally
reversed?
asking.
No, right now, no,
Parking's
they
on
had
the
it
south side
correct.
right now.
it would
They
be,
were wanted to have it moved back to the resident, wanted to have it moved back to the north side. It's,
Okay.
the south side of the street is where all the foliage is. That's where the parking is right now.
correct.
Chairperson Pincus?
Yes.
I had sent out a copy of the ordinance that originally made the change. I just sent it out again, so everyone will have it right after the meeting, and we'll put it in the packet, obviously, for next meeting, given that this now has an item, but it was adopted under ordinance number 2040 in March of 2018. And again, as far as staff could tell, it never went through traffic and safety for any sort of conversation or seeking any sort of response.
Okay. Do I have got a motion to add this to an agenda?
I'll make
Joe?
that motion.
T. Tomaso?
Carl? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Nay. 2 nays.
Roll call.
Will call.
Cuthbertson?
Aye.
D. Tomaso?
Aye.
Little?
Nay.
McMurray?
Aye.
Carl Timmerman? Aye. Karen Timmerman?
Aye.
Wagner?
No.
Chairperson Pincus?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. All right.
908,
No, 909.
909.
Reversing the no parking from north to the south. Okay, then we also had a couple of public participation in reference to the situation at Princeton, and I think it was Elm, in reference to that, and we've talked about that. But go back to the other one, that was in reference to the signage on North Avenue, per se, in reference to making a U-turn, along with making a left-hand turn in the center lane, and also having that intersection being able to have a left-hand turn option available at that intersection. Got that correct?
No, it's a right
Not sure
turn.
that last part of it.
Oh, right, no,
Right
right-hand
turn, not
okay.
left turn.
Right. The left coming off of North
She
Avenue.
was stating they have a right arrow.
They have a right arrow.
They have a right arrow at the same time they
Yes.
have a left arrow.
Sure, of course.
So her question was, she's making a U-turn going east on North Avenue to head west on North Avenue at Ardmore. Then there's a vehicle going south on Ardmore, turning right to go west on North Avenue, who also, they both get the green light, or the green arrow. So the vehicle turning right has to yield to any traffic that's in the roadway. So whether it's a car coming straight across the intersection, which it shouldn't be if he's got a green arrow, But either way, they have to yield to that traffic. If it's going west, if it's making a U-turn, they have to yield. So the car making the U-turn has right of way. The car making the right-hand turn has to yield. So if they don't yield, it's a traffic crash, citation is issued for the party at fault.
Okay.
That's it, so.
That's very simple. Yes, Bob?
So, just a comment, wouldn't any change in the signals be a IDOT issue, or would it be under the village jurisdiction?
I think that's
See,
IDOT.
At that situation,
Yeah.
it's IDOT.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. If there's another situation that's operated by the village, it'd be a village issue.
Same rule applies whether there's a green arrow or not. You can still make right-hand turns on a red light as long as it's not posted you can, so it's the same. That car making the right-hand turn has to go into the immediate lane and has to yield the traffic there.
Sergeant, do you see this as a problem over there? No? Okay.
So in other words, we don't have really any incidents happening over there. So that's.
I just want to know.
So while you're making the turn, somebody, yeah, okay. So hopefully that answers your question.
I'll be honest with you, I mean, if I had a green arrow, I'd feel like I had the right of way, but thank you for clarifying that. That's something that's,
No, I've read that before, but it was pertaining to the turning on red, that you had the right turn, car turning right has to yield the right of way. But
You have to yield to the traffic. Whatever traffic that is, even if it's a vehicle making a U-turn.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for us.
thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move on to item number 10, Commissioners' comments. We're gonna start with Karen on my right.
Got nothing.
Oh, wait, what?
Did you want to discuss the Ardmore School comment or no?
Oh, wait, yes, I'm sorry. because we
Ardmore
didn't-
School, yeah.
We never got her paper.
She left it over on the table.
Okay. Yes, the situation with, good point. The lady that came in and talked about Ardmore situation, the traffic situation over there. Thank you.
what was her name?
She never gave her name.
She's got it written
Yeah,
down here.
She wrote it down here, yeah.
Catherine
Maywood.
Maywood. You're good at trying to get, okay.
I spoke with her on the phone this afternoon, so.
Okay, so it's the same old situation that's been over there at Ardmore for at least, I understand, Carl, you said about 30 years?
Longer than, ever since they closed all the other schools and condensed into the smaller
Well,
districting.
Ever since I've been here, 20 years, it's been 20 years right now, and yes,
That's right, you live right there.
well, I'm pretty close to that and do know the situation. But yes, Bob?
I do recall, and I'm sure others recall, that there was, complaints about traffic, and the village actually did a traffic study, and I think we spent close to
15
That's
$8,000.
correct.
And that traffic study had some recommendations, and ultimately, I think the school, or District 45, opted to implement their own solution to the traffic issue. And I drive through there twice a day, and I see the congestion. They do a good job of having teachers, staff out there invest to control the traffic. There is a lot of congestion, especially in Harvard, but, I don't know what the solution is. There is a traffic study out there somewhere.
You are correct, there was a traffic study, you are correct, they gave them, if I remember right, 3 options, and you're correct, the school district or the school itself, I don't remember what, but they said that they would take a look at that, and they opt to
Do their own
their
thing.
own traffic
Right.
out there. In reference to that, it's also, I'm gonna say, this happens at any school, in reference to it. Where my daughter is now at Jackson.
Problems at Jackson.
They don't even, when I drop my daughter off in the morning, when you go through that circle in the front there, you're not supposed to make a right-hand turn coming out of that onto Jackson. You're supposed to make left-hand turns, and I would say 25 to 30% make the right-hand turn. They look around, see if anybody's around, and they're off and running. So I think this is a standard situation that happens at any school here or wherever. So, yes.
Yeah, I've been on this board for what, 14 years, and this has been on the board so many times. Unfortunately, this school is in a residential area. They closed Franklin School, they closed Elm School, they closed Washington School, they closed Madison School, they closed Iowa School, they closed Highward School. Crammed them all into Schaefer, Ardmore, and Iowa School, and what did they, and all of these are in residential areas. What did they think was gonna happen? This is District 45's issue. They need to correct this. You can't cram 20 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag and expect it to hold, okay? This is something that they didn't see in the future. Maybe they should put on a few more bus routes and, bring the bus route area in a little closer to the school, put a couple more 72-passenger school buses on. That might make a few less cars. Bring it down, might employ a couple more bus drivers too. The school board, I think, probably needs to spend the money. If not, I know a few times they wanted the village to pay for all of the crossing guards and stuff. This is something that needs to be done by their administration. They sold all these properties, they crammed all these people into these kids into these few remaining schools. This is something that they need to figure out. It's in a residential area. There's not the room for this type of traffic.
Okay.
Joe.
Yes, Joe.
I pretty much agree. I think probably the best solution would be for them to put crossing guards out to direct traffic as necessary. Anything that I can think of that we could do to fix would almost certainly get huge complaints. Such as making streets one-way during times and stuff like that. I don't see any way we could affect a change that would be meaningful.
I will tell you, they do have 2 crossing guards out there. They have one, I believe, it's Yale over there on the east end of the
There's one at Harvard and School. And I
is
think
that-
then there's one at
Is that Yale?
School and Yale, yeah.
School and
They
Yale.
used to have one at Ardmore, and they're still in school. I
Yeah,
thought.
they're at those 2 major.
I thought you said Harvard and Yale, Harvard and school, and what was the other
Yale
one?
and school.
Yale and school.
Yeah.
I
It's
I noticed the serious omission of Ardmore.
Actually, I should have corrected myself, because I've been there during those times, and the crossing guards do great at crossing. They paid like no attention to the cars.
It's not their job. They're
No,
not,
no,
they're not supposed to do
no, I
traffic.
understand that.
Like, literally, the training says, don't direct the cars what to do at all this time.
Right. But if they had somebody there to actually deal with traffic as well as crossing the kids, I think this problem would be minimized. But that's up to the school to do.
Well, they have did that before. It should be brought to the attention of the school. But our police department, when they have availability to go around to the different schools at the different recess times, I have seen them there.
Sure.
And obviously, just their presence all of a sudden makes everything a little bit different.
Amazing how that works.
It always does.
But, again, just like anything else, it's a school, it happens for about 10 or 15 minutes, and it's over with at the morning and at recess, or when they get out of school. And like I said, it's just not at this school, it's happening at all the schools basically, at a certain degree, but I don't think this is any different. I've seen it
Yeah.
in other towns, and the line for parking is 2 blocks long, okay? So it's just, I think, a fact of life, and hopefully that people that are driving, just like they are on regular roads, that they're obeying the speed limit. We do have signs up there saying that this is a school zone, And I mean,
Yeah.
there's not much more you can really
agree.
end up doing that I see. But
He was first.
Ed,
I've been on and off this commission since 2008, and this is probably the fourth time this has come up since that time. But Jack, you bring up an interesting point. After all those times that this has come before us, and we've, for whatever reason, either recommended something and it didn't go through, or the school said we would do it, have we, as a commission, ever sent a letter to the school district telling them, I mean, not to ruffle feathers between different layers of government here, but saying that this is your issue, come up with a solution?
They've actually been here at some of these meetings, and we've told them that.
and just FYI, I can't remember back, but it's probably about, it's been 1, 2, maybe 3, well, the police chief
Yep, that's what I was going to bring up.
and the district superintendent, and actually Ardmore staff all had met and came up with a plan in reference to that. And basically Ardmore and the district, that's when they actually turned it around in reference to getting that second crossing guard, official crossing guard over on Yale. Is the school then picked that up, and they're picking up the cost over on Harvard. So that, yeah, the school district has been active in reference to it. Obviously, there's been change of personnel as it's gone through, but I just think it's something that it should be brought up with the actual school itself, because each school is individually handled in reference to it. And back then, when you were on the commission, they also came up with an idea of making the parents totally aware of what's happening and what the proper procedures were. And that was a very successful campaign on their part.
Yes, I do remember that.
So,
Okay. As we've gone through this throughout the years, many years, right, every time there's an administration change, they aren't familiar with what has been gone on. But I do remember, because I remember the police chief at that time, his verbiage, I can't remember what his name was, when he was going at it with the or with the District 45, they were enforcing, hey, start writing tickets. Where's our law enforcement? We want tickets issued. So they started writing tickets, and guess who got all the tickets?
All
The
the
teachers, the administrators, everybody from the school. And then they said, wait a minute, stop. And they said, and his exact verbiage was, you asked us to put out the fishing net, you're gonna get good fish with the bad fish in the fishing net. And then all of a sudden, they decided they're gonna start doing things of their own. But I remember that phrase that he told them, you're gonna get good fish caught with the bad fish. And then they started rethinking this whole thing and then redesigning and trying to get some of their own administration to help coach the traffic, teach the parents how to drop the kids off, and help direct the traffic. Joey's got some.
yes, Joey?
Do we know if there's been any incidents, or is this just a worry?
Let's call it a concern.
Oh, okay, but
It's always been a concern for them because they look at the high volume of traffic coming through there.
yeah, I understand that. That's obvious, but I mean, do we have kids getting bounced off of cars
No,
routinely
not
over
to my
there?
knowledge.
Okay, so,
Haven't heard anything.
so are we,
Been on the commission.
I guess I'm wondering if we're kind of chasing a ghost here?
Calls, yeah.
I think if anything is if we could get back to the actual school principal and say there's been concerns again, and if they could maybe figure something out, but that's about all that I think we can do.
I agree.
Just fine.
From my recollection, she said she was a school nurse. I thought she said she was at Ardmore.
She did.
Yes.
Yeah, so she should be able to go and talk to her principal.
Right, and I was hoping that she would stay. I invited her to stay so we could
Right.
get that
I would
situation.
even recommend that she go to a PTA meeting and do the same thing, which gets more to the parents.
Yes.
and it coming from her, if you, as the chairman, would like to reply to her visit, send her a letter stating, this is what we think would work best, just noting that kind of thing. I mean, it's always, it usually helps if we get the parents involved more. There's more, what is it at the beginning of the year that they have the routes to school they're supposed to take and a little packet that they have, just keeping the information current, that kind of thing. I'm sure they do it, but I don't know. I don't have kids at Ardmore anymore.
Well, like I said, I do know when they did that campaign, they did it for a couple of years, somehow to make the students, make their parents aware of the rules. And it was very successful, and we didn't have any problems for a long time until this incident that just came up. And this is just somebody that actually just observed something that potentially could be a problem, and it hasn't been for 30 years.
But as I'm saying, her going to the PTA, her going to the
Yes,
student
I totally
body
agree.
would be a wake-up call, or it would be, she would have a better effect doing so.
Yes.
She also sounded like she was pretty new. And maybe she's just not accustomed to the chaos.
That could be.
I can't answer that, so.
No, this is speculation.
So what I'm saying is I don't see any reason to further proceed with anything on this. And yes, we will get a hold of the Ardmore principal and to say there was a concern and to talk to so-and-so. So, do we agree on that?
Works for me.
Okay. I think we covered everything on that. Moving on to then commissioners' comments. We gave Karen some time to think.
Still got nothing.
Okay. Carl?
I just had seen an article in the Chicago Tribune a week or so ago about Elgin looking at the possibility of addressing panhandling as a safety issue because of the danger of pedestrians near cars and people bring their kids out there. I only bring this up. I have a copy of it if you're interested. This does come up with us occasionally. Maybe we want to have, if you want to read the article, or put it, I could send it to you guys, I suppose.
If you could send it to Kevin, and Kevin then could distribute it.
Just to have as,
Or we could just.
if this goes anywhere with them, then maybe that's something we may need to look at one time in the future.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Carl? I mean, Carl. Jack?
Hey, Carl.
Let me switch the name tag.
So much today, I've been just.
Oh, well.
No, actually, I don't think I really actually have anything at this time.
Bob?
The only thing I'll mention, since we're talking about schools, I did listen to a brief program about why, more and more children are being driven to school. And maybe I'll share that with everyone. Very interesting. It was produced by a Canadian group, but it's very pertinent to the U.S. as well. But I still think that, in spite of that, I think Ardmore has one of the most number of students who walk or ride their bikes to school. But that could certainly reduce congestion if more students walk to school. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Tricia?
So I want to address the probably 4 people who are watching the meeting to say I've been listening to a lot of people talking and saying they feel overwhelmed and uncertain about what their next best action is in the world as it exists today. And I would like to say every concern you have about a big national issue that you can't do anything about, there is a small local issue that is a corollary. And so the things that you care about, it matters to come in and talk to these board meetings, these commission meetings. It matters to show up and make your voice heard, because we don't do stuff unless we hear from the community about what the community wants us to do. So pick the things that you really care about and dial in on those, and talk to your local commissioners. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Just one thing, at the Canadian National Tracks at Addison, the pylons, the pillars, whatever you want to call them, that hold the gates, I don't even know how they're still standing. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that.
We've been, if I may, we've been pushing Canadian National. My understanding is that the response back to us has typically been that they need some sort of permission from IDOT to proceed, and so we've got the fingers pointing. But that said, this was a couple months ago at this point, so I will follow up with our team members who have been coordinating that conversation.
That's it.
I watched that base on the south side, the one going southbound Addison Road, and if you start watching, it comes down, 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 and they adjust the base. Look at the base, there's nothing left of it. I brought that up many years ago, and if you call that phone number they have on their equipment, you get nowhere.
Okay.
Complete. Joe?
I'm good.
Okay. Leaves me. So, we do have some good news. Okay. We have somebody now that will be able to take minutes at our meeting.
Excellent.
And I got Janelle, and she is sitting out in
I was wondering why she was here.
And she's already rated you all, so she knows how to handle you.
Oh, good.
So, but welcome. We're really happy to have you, and somehow we'll figure out how to work this all in, and we'll find a place for you to. Okay.
Name? Janelle.
Nice to meet you, Janelle.
Nice to meet you, Janelle.
So that leaves Kevin off the hook now for having meetings, minutes.
Just don't scare her away, please.
All right, we'll lighten up, we'll ease into
Well, then stay away from her.
Now you can go watch the YouTube video and get a recap.
So, but, okay. Welcome, and glad to have you, and we'll see you at our next meeting, and unless you tell Kevin something tomorrow morning. And with that, it's
Motion
Super Bowl
to make it-
Sunday, and kind of excited about that, and hope everybody has a good time with it. And that's about all I have to say.
Is there a way both teams can lose?
Oh, Bob, you're coming back?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
No. Nope.
He hasn't
We're
let
getting
us
close.
speak yet.
Okay.
I just have to run down the line here. Kevin, do you have anything else more to
I
say?
have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Make a motion to adjourn.
The second was by Karen.
Yep.
All in
Karen.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. And our meeting now closes at 9:43. Thank you.